All right, good evening, everyone, and let me welcome you again this evening to another UIC Town Hall meeting. It is a pleasure having you here with us this evening. We know your time is precious and you chose to spend it with us. We are really appreciative of that. I'm just going to introduce you quickly to our team members that is currently on with us. As usual, we have the man himself, our mentor, the president, Mr. Joseph Patterson, president of the UIC. Mr. Patterson, if you will, just wave for our viewers on social media. We also have Mr. Devon Thompson, vice president for the county of, he just fell off, but he'll be back momentarily. He does a lot of the social media work for us to get us connected with you, our wonderful supporters, and those who are curious about the UIC and what we plan to do for Jamaica, what we have been doing for Jamaica, and the way forward. We also have our membership director, Mrs. Janet Chkowski. Janet, wave for us, please. Janet, a little wave. There you go. About our membership drive, what we're doing, and inviting you to the family and our usual Facebook big ups to our members. That comes from Janet. She is a very wonderful person. She takes care of the entire UIC family, keeps us together and focused. We also have one of the most energetic young members of the UIC you can ever find, the more affable Miss Natalie Huey. She's here today to share with us. Natalie, wait for everyone. There you go. So Natalie is a ball of energy. She's very passionate about the UIC because she sees the vision. She has combed through our manifesto page by page, and she is here to tell you what the UIC plans to do for Jamaica and what we have been doing so far. We have also Mr. Kevin McLeod joining us. He's a long-standing member and supporter of the UIC, a member of our very active planning committee, very integral to that committee, and brings a very, very distinct level of calm and organization, and definitely has the know-how to get the UIC information and navigate us around this very tribal information and political system in Jamaica, which we are very appreciative of his effort in that regard. Now that I have said a mouthful and swallowed up a chunk of our time, I'll turn over to our president, Mr. Joseph Patterson, for the welcome. Mr.
Thank you very much for the very lovely introduction, Winston, as always. And let me just say thank you to all of you who are on the call today, whether you're on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube channel, or right here with us on the live Zoom session. Thank you all very much for joining us. As you know, the UIC is a registered political party in Jamaica. We're an unusual political party because we're more of a movement, and our focus is on liberating and empowering the people of Jamaica so that every single Jamaican will have the capacity, have the environment that they need to achieve their full potential. And so without further ado, let me say welcome to you all, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Appreciate the very succinct welcome to everyone joining us. And again, welcome to everyone who is joining us across social media. Again, thank you for being with us. And while you're there, whichever platform you're on, please like and subscribe. And later on, please share. The information needs to go out to let Jamaica know that there is a very, very viable alternative to the colonial system that has plunged us into the depths of despair and into great debts, $2 trillion worth of debt, that the UIC will take it up on itself to help unburden Jamaicans off. Now, today we're gonna take questions. So for persons on the Zoom or persons who want to come in on the Zoom and share their questions with us, I'm gonna ask you to use the raise hand feature. If you're on our other social media platforms and a question pop in your head, it doesn't matter what the question is, please share it with us. We have persons standing by to bring those questions across to this live, and we'll do our best to answer. Usually, we don't get to all the questions, but we do answer them on Facebook, the ones that we don't get to, but we try to get through as much as we can today. And the president and the vice presidents are here, and we are ready and willing to take your questions. We're going to be mainly talking about the 6 whys that the UIC focus on today in this discussion. And what I'm going to do is start by priming this group with these questions so we can start discussing what is going on. So let me just, without further ado, and with less talking from me, ask the first question, which is, when we look at Jamaica and the taxation levels that we face, why do Jamaicans pay so much in taxes and get so little in return? An unsafe society where crime is through the roof, an unclean society where garbage is strewn all over, solid waste management is poor to non-existent, and of course, the disorder in society is rife. Joseph, help us understand this.
Sure, no problem, Winston. You know, in any country, the most basic function of government is to ensure that you have a safe environment in which to live, an environment where you are able to go about your business safely. You can go to bed and sleep comfortably. You can wake up in the morning very early and travel on the road. I remember when I was a child, growing up with my mom, single mother, 3 children, and sometimes she had to get up very, very early to go to work in the morning. And, she leaves out and um, there's no street light. So she has to carry a flashlight with her to make sure that, she can see her way through clearly. And, we always have to be looking over our shoulders, coming in or going out, you have to be looking over your shoulder to see, is it safe? And I recall living in Canada where people just run out of their doors, sometimes forgetting to even lock the door behind them, and just going about their business very fast, very quickly, not worrying about any grills to open any grills or so on. And it dawned on me, why is it that Jamaica, we can't have such a safe environment? Why is it that we always have to be worried about theft or murder or being abducted or kidnapped and so on? There's always these concerns, hitting us. And then I say, wait a minute, but we're paying a lot of taxes. I mean, if you work at a company and you're paid with a payroll check, you'll notice that there is NIS deducted from your paycheck. There's the education tax deducted. There's the heart trust amount that your employer pays on your behalf. There's income tax if you meet the threshold for that. If you're not getting a very small amount, then you start to pay the 25% income tax. And then you also pay sales tax if you go and, buy something outside. And if you import something, you pay a huge duty. If you import something that's cost $100 overseas, when it comes here, it might cost you anywhere from 150 to 200 US dollars for the same product. If you're a manufacturer and you're trying to manufacture and compete on the global market, you have to buy the machine and equipment at sometimes twice the price of those you're going to try to compete with. Of course, if you have a connection in politics, if you know a minister, or if you have a link with the minister, then you can get a break. But for the average person who doesn't get a break, he has to pay the full cost. But why is this so? Why is it so expensive from a tax perspective, while at the same time we're not getting the commensurate levels of service? You're not paying 25, 30, 40, 50% of your income in taxes and getting a very safe environment, a very clean environment, a very orderly environment. What is the disconnect? Well, the disconnect is called theft. It's where the government takes your money but refuses and fails to invest that money in the things that would ensure that you have the kind of country that you need to have to be as productive and efficient and effective as you need to be. And this spirals, Winston, into the creation of the crime problem that we have. Because as long as businesses can safely and efficiently operate, they can't safely operate because they're always having to spend a lot of money on security issues. They can't efficiently operate because the environment is such that the roadways are bad, the infrastructure is bad, and the quality of graduates that they're trying to hire to work for them are not adequately trained and sufficiently educated to be of maximum productivity. And as a result of that, the quality of output and the quantity of output of our country is lower than it needs to be, which draws down our standard of living. But at the same time, all of us who work and produce must pay a lot in taxes to a government that isn't performing. This is a serious burden on any economy, and it has proven to be a dramatic burden for the Jamaican people and one that we're struggling with dearly. Winston.
Hi, Joseph. I'm back. My internet dropped out for a sec. Thank you for that. So,
Oh,
if I can juxtapose, so you're saying based on how Jamaica is structured, if we look at it like a neighborhood, then you're saying that the community isn't being run properly, where some has exclusivity, some don't, some are overcharged, some get a break because of connections, and therefore persons exist in disparity. One has a different level of income than the other because of those systems that they create within a system, for want of a better term. Is that correct?
yes, and it's like a company actually. You know, in a company, you sell goods and services, and you receive the revenues, and that revenues has to serve a number of purposes. It has to allow you to buy back the goods you need to sell if you're selling, if you're a trader. You have to pay the staff that are working, and those staff will then be able to cause the company to go forward. And you need profit for your investors. Now, if somewhere in the company structure somebody is stealing from the company, then you find that you have a shortage of cash, but you still have those expenses. Now you have to cut corners. From a government standpoint, you won't fix the street properly because some of that cash that should be going towards fixing the street is going towards somebody else's wealth creation without being productive wealth creation. Some of that money is going into inefficiencies because you have more people and the wrong quality of people hired to do the job, but you have to pay them nonetheless. And you are simply not able to then generate the volume of returns that you need to be able to be a company that's growing. And that's what's happening to Jamaica. We are losing a lot of money to waste, where our government is very large and you have a lot of people in positions and offices collecting huge amount of monies from taxpayers, but are not doing anything of substantive value that is adding value to the existence and the development of the country. Then you have those who are literally directly just stealing, meaning they're finding various ways to structure deals and contracts that causes significant amount of money to be diverted from the purpose for which they were intended and into the pockets of a few people, which is why you'll notice that politicians who get a relatively small salary, 6 million, 7 million, $8 million a year, big compared to most of the other citizens, but relatively small in the grand scheme of things. But those persons within a few years of being in office becomes very wealthy, and you can never hear them explain to you the connection. Why is it just after you guys get into office, shortly you're richer than everybody else? Before you get in, you were struggling, you got in, and now you're much richer than the average citizen. Why is this? And the reason is that it's really an enterprise of theft. It's a structure, a very, very, very sophisticated system that they use to extract the wealth of the people in the same way that a slave master did in the days of old when we had chattel slavery.
Thank you so very much, Joseph. And when you mention enrichment by questionable means, so that I guess that would explain the new formula we're seeing, where there are dynasties, family dynasties emerging in politics.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that would explain why other professionals choose to become career politicians in Jamaica. So if the UIC sees that problem, how will that be fixed? And before you answer that question, let me just take some time to welcome our Vice President for Middlesex, Mrs. Paulette Mackenzie Williams, and
You mean
also,
sorry?
sorry,
Sorry.
thank you, Joseph.
Yes, no
Oh,
worries.
sorry,
Yes.
Mrs. Paulette Mackenzie Williams, and also welcome Dr. Harvey, another member of our planning committee and a very staunch supporter of the United Independence Congress. I will welcome you all, and we look forward to sharing with you the UIC
Thank you very
solution.
much.
What is UIC solution to this governance issue that we are seeing, Joseph?
It's very, very good question, Winston. The UIC understands that, first of all, we have to educate Jamaicans on what is the purpose of government, because that is really the crux of the matter. As long as we don't understand the role of government, we'll have the wrong kind of expectations and we'll have the wrong kind of solutions being put forward. So, first and foremost, the role of government is to protect the life, the liberty, and the property rights of all citizens equally. That is the number one purpose of government. Its government is not there to manage our economy. They're not there to ensure that you and I become financially prosperous. They will create the environment that will allow you to be prosperous, but they're not there to manipulate our economy. So right now, for example, government tries to manage the exchange rate. Why? They try to manage the exchange rate because they tell us we can't afford to have a runaway exchange rate. Why would you have a runaway exchange rate? The only reason for an exchange rate to move between two countries is if the export from one country is far less than the import from that country. And so, what will happen if the export is very small and the import is very high? Then the value of the importing country's currency will fall, and the value of the country that's exporting their currency will rise. That's okay. That is sending a signal to the market, is saying to the local economy that, wow, you are not exporting enough. And what the local economy will then do, that is the local residents, the ordinary citizens, they will see the signal in the market and will seek to find new and efficient ways to produce products that can be exported. Now, what Jamaica does, our government pick and choose who they're going to give particular special favoritism to in terms of export markets. They also determine how much fees they're going to charge you to allow you to export or not. So they interfere with the market process and make it difficult for some members of society to become very good exporters while they manipulate the exchange rate in favor of certain importers so that when they're importing, they have a stable rate in which to use to manage their importation. So the government, while telling you they're going to manage the exchange rate in our benefit, is actually managing the exchange rate for the benefit of a few of those who support their political agenda. Okay? So that's just one example I'm showing you of government getting involved in the economy, claiming to be doing it on your behalf, but is only making it worse. Now, what would happen if the US dollar were to escalate out of control, so to speak, as they say? Let's say the dollar becomes, right now it's approximately 140 to 145 to 1. Let's say it became 250 to 1. What would that mean? It would simply be a reflection of how poorly we're doing in exporting relative to the US imports coming in. And we, the citizens, would have to make a decision. What do we buy? Do we buy carrots imported from America? Or do we buy local carrots cheaper that now becomes more accessible and farmers are more stimulated to produce local carrots because the local market will be far more attractive to buyers? Is what I'm saying. So we, the citizens, would adjust our behaviors absent anything by the government. Now, let's suppose the government focuses on its responsibility and to make sure that when you plant your carrots, nobody come and steal your carrots. When you take your carrots to the market to sell it and you're there overnight, nobody comes and rob you and take the money away from you after you made your weekend sales at the market. Or when you take your cash and you go and buy a television and come home with it, nobody breaks into your home and steal a television and shoot you. That's the job of the government. And if they were to do their job and make sure you and I can safely plan our lives, go about our productive business, and enjoy the fruits of our labor, our investments would multiply and we, the people, would create more jobs, more opportunities, and raise up our standard of living If the government does its part, do not overtax us, but the tax that it does collect, make sure we have a very good police service, a very good justice system, and very good infrastructure, and watch us, the people, produce and create a better Jamaica.
Thank you so very much, Joseph. That sounds absolutely resounding and well thought out. It means that the UIC has a plan going forward, one that can guide the country to where it needs to be. But with all these plans, we have to be reaching out to the people. So firstly, let me ask Natalie, what are you hearing from your youth friends, colleagues, and contacts in the street about the UIC and what they have heard and seen so far? I know sometimes to get the mic off is a bit of trouble, Natalie. I've been there, but don't worry. If you're having problems, we can skip and come back to you. If you're having a problem, just raise your hand.
Well, you just look at the bottom left hand
Then they'll
corner
move on.
and you can click mute or unmute. The bottom left hand corner. You'll see
All right. So
mute.
Natalie seemed to be having some technical difficulty. So let me move over to Mrs. Chikowski. So Janet, tell me what is happening in membership. Are people queuing, joining, running to you to join the?
Slowly but surely they are coming in. And I know that it's because we're not out there yet. When people see the message of the UIC, they are drawn to it like I was. A lot of people are desperate for something fresh and something new. So as we're getting the message out there, they will come in. But we do have a database of members that I will be contacting. I'm just finalizing these letters that I put together. And once we do that, then we will see our membership starts growing some more. And Natalie has been doing a great job inviting many people to the UIC group. And now we just need to engage them, and hopefully they can start coming in and commenting on our posts and attending some of the town hall meetings as well.
Great, great, great. All right. So it sounds like we have membership coming in, and that is beautiful to hear that the UIC is making a name for itself. Now, we don't only want to talk, we want to play the game, as in, we want to stand up and represent Jamaica in a staunch way, in a serious way, to let them know that the status quo has ended and it's time for the people. And the UIC, under the leadership of Mr. Joseph Patterson, is putting the people first. And I hear Joseph speak of taxes just now, and that is something that is near and dear to most Jamaicans. Some persons, they are not earning anything to contribute to the taxes, even though they want to, and you have some that are dodging the taxes, even though they know they have statutory responsibilities, and then you have those that are overtaxed. So I want to ask Mrs. Mackenzie Williams, being the financial guru that she is, how will the UIC address this disparity in taxation?
Good evening, everybody. Paulette Mackenzie
Evening.
Williams here. I'm the Vice President of Sorry. So the taxation. Tax is a very troubling aspect of the economy for Jamaicans. And what the UIC is proposing is that we have taxation that is a maximum of 10% on all source of income. So that tax would be used for the running of the economy to provide the services for Jamaicans that is what Jamaicans need. So we want to provide security. The 10% will be able to do that if we take out of the system corruption that we know cost us millions and millions of dollars. We also have a plan for 10% GCT. The 10% GCT now is a dedicated tax that will go towards persons that are vulnerable, and so that we can give assistance to our citizens who have been left behind. So the UIC's tax position is 10% on income from all source, and 10% direct tax, which is tax on goods for the vulnerable. We also have in our mandate, it is to remove duties from import duties and all of these other taxes that we're paying, property tax, that we feel is very grievous, especially for older people. When you have retired and you're still being asked to pay property tax, you can well see the kind of burden that that can create for those persons. So the UIC plan is a tax of no more than 10% on the Jamaican population. Winston?
Want to add to that
What?
as well. Oh, can I say
No,
a
no,
few
go ahead,
words
Joseph. Go
there?
ahead, Joseph. Go
Okay,
ahead, Joseph. Go
sure,
ahead.
sure. Excellent points, Paulette. You know, what I like about the taxation package of the UIC is that one, it is simple. Even a child can calculate the amount of tax they should pay. And under the UIC system, everybody who gets money from any source actually pays taxes. And why do we say everybody? Because the truth is, all of us want a quality country to live in. All of us would like to know that when we step out of our doors, we're stepping onto good streets, good sidewalks, have street lights, have a secure environment where police are operating in every community efficiently and effectively, of a good army that can defend our country in the case we need to defend ourselves from external parties, of a good justice system so that all of us can have access to quality justice and not have to fight and cuss and kill each other. We can actually appeal to the courts and it's affordable and accessible to all. So the UIC tax system of 10% across the board on all sources of income ensures that the government will have the revenues it needs to do its job. But what is really nice about this is that the government cannot raise your taxes. So once the UIC is elected and we change the constitution, taxes will be capped at a maximum of 10% of your income. So you will never pay more than 10% of your income for taxes. And the government can only get more taxes by increasing your income. So the more it creates an environment that causes your income to go up, 10% of $1 million is more than 10% of 500,000. So if your income, Natalie, goes up from maybe what it is now, 10 million. So let's say income goes from 10 million to 20 million. That's the only way the government gets more money from you because your income has gone up. The way it is currently, the government can increase its taxes on you even though your income has not gone up. And that is unfair. And so the UIC has put a cap on income tax at 10%, while at the same time eliminating all other taxation right across the board, except for the GCT, which we're going to reduce from 15% to 10%. So again, another savings from 15 to 10. And that 10%, as Paulette rightly pointed out, is going to be designated and focused on helping the poorest among us to have quality nutrition, quality education, quality housing, and quality healthcare so that every single Jamaican will have the opportunity to do well because they have gotten the basic essentials of life, even if they're very poor, when the UIC takes office.
That sounds wonderful, Joseph. 10 reducing consumption tax to 10% is a savings everyone can relate to because the tax on consumption hits more persons. So that is wonderful. So my follow-up question would be: is that tax rate sufficient to sustain a government? I look now at what the government uses, and they have run up a $2 trillion debt just trying to run the government. So will that lower percentage by the UIC, by a UIC government, run Jamaica?
A very good question, Winston. And a lot of persons have asked that question in the past about what are we going to do about the enormous debt that exists in Jamaica. There are two ways to go about the debt management. One is the current way of the government, which is to try to milk Jamaicans as much as possible without changing the environment in which the Jamaican people have to operate. So they pressure you and they milk you and they try and find various ways of taxing you while your environment and your capacity to grow has not improved. The UIC will be doing the opposite. We're going to liberate you. We're going to reduce the many tax burdens. We're going to reduce the unnecessary regulations. We're going to get rid of the red tape that's strangling small businesses. And we're going to unleash the creativity of Jamaicans so that they can produce. This is going to push our productivity through the roof, which is going to increase our tax revenues in net total and will allow us to service the debt effectively. We're also going to renegotiate the debt based on some key principles which have not yet been applied by the government, which we know we can apply. There are some very effective ways. As an accountant, I know this as to how to handle and treat debt in such a way that you eliminate it faster. But the most important thing for us to know is that the UIC system of governance will increase our productivity, increase our output, and therefore increase the tax revenues by virtue of production, not by draconian measures of the government.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Thank you so very much. Mrs. Mackenzie Williams, another question for you. Deficit spending by the government, how would the UIC treat that? Would the UIC continue such a policy, or is there a more progressive way for the UIC forward?
Mr. Vice President, I am going to respectfully defer this to my president, who always answers these questions so eloquently. Mr. Patterson.
You're muted, Joseph. You're muted.
Sorry, thank you so much, Winston. All right, Paulette, I'll answer the question. Deficit spending. The only reason why a government has a deficit spending is because they're spending more than they're taking in, right? And why do you want to spend more than you're taking in? It means that you have something very important and very special that you have to spend money on. So you have to borrow in excess of what you are able to bring in. Let's say it's a capital expenditure. Because you have a very good capital expenditure, which when you borrow money today and pay for that capital good, it is going to produce a much greater return and you can pay back the debt. Now, that has not been the case in Jamaica. We have borrowed billions and billions of dollars, spend on capital, spend on wages,
Two,
spent
$2 trillion to date.
$2 trillion to date, and we're not seeing where the productive capacity of Jamaica has been lifted. The truth of the matter is we do not need to borrow any money to manage and run the Jamaican economy. As it is currently, the revenues we get is more than enough to satisfy the operating needs of the country. It's just that we're spending a big portion of it on corruption. I think Devon would tell you that we spend over $250 billion on corruption alone. And this is a very serious infringement on the rights of Jamaicans because we're being taxed to pay for the government's theft of our monies. So the UIC is going to eliminate that. But most importantly, we're going to move to a system where you no longer borrow at interest in order to fund the government. The government has the capacity to create and spend its own sovereign currency into existence as long as it matches that expenditure with the productive level of the country and does not exceed by more than 2 to 3% our immediate productive capacity. With such a stable introduction of new currency into the economy without borrowing at interest, one, you won't have the big burden of interest costs, and two, you will not have artificial inflation decreasing the value of our money at the same time. So the UIC understand the economics and understand the whole fiscal arrangement necessary, and as such will demonstrate to Jamaica and the world that the fraudulent monetary system that we're now following is not good and needs to be abandoned as quickly as possible by every country, and Jamaica will lead the way in that.
Wonderful, Mr. Patterson. Thank you very much. Mr. Devon, I have a question for you. Now, in terms of what Joseph talked about, the loss of value of currency due to theft, I see a question coming across from YouTube that speaks about over 700 million US lost to corruption. What can you share with UIC supporters, with viewers of this program today, as to one, what that represents for the country, and two, how will the UIC work to.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Winston. Um, okay, so there was an article recently, and it came from the private sector organization of Jamaica, that Jamaica actually loses over 750 million US dollars per year due to corruption, and that's around maybe 110 billion dollars. So I am going to be 33 this year, and let's say that consider half of my life times half of my life by $750 million. That's the amount of money that we've been wasting for the past couple of years. And you see now where the government recently, the prime minister's wife had created a GoFundMe to raise funds to fix roads because of the past hurricane, right? And my question is, what could we have done with this 750 million US dollars per year that the government is wasting? And one of the things that the UIC points out, if you go to our website and read the platform, you're gonna see where we speak about the root cause of poverty and the root cause of crime in Jamaica, and it all comes back to that 750 million US dollars. The root cause is government corruption. Government creates poverty. Government creates crime. Poverty and crime are artificial entities. They're not natural. It's created, right? The UIC's plan is to eliminate corruption via creating a constitution made by Jamaicans for Jamaicans that creates what we call a non-partisan constitutional republic of Jamaica. This system removes the governor general, and it removes the queen, and it removes the prime minister, and replaces them with a president and three vice presidents for each county. And then you have forgive me, and then you have the MPs, and you have the ministers of government. The ministers of government are now separate from the ministers of parliament. Right now, you have ministers of parliament being minister of energy, and you're controlling a constituency. It doesn't make sense. The prime minister himself, he's the prime minister of a whole country and has a constituency. That doesn't make any sense. So the president, vice presidents, and ministers of government won't have those kind of responsibilities. Their responsibility will be for the vice presidents to their county, the president to the country, MPs to their constituency. So ministers of government will then become subject matter experts. So we're gonna have engineers for the Ministry of Energy, doctors for the Ministry of Health, teachers for the Ministry of Education. So when you remove the MPs from the positions of ministers of government, you technically remove an aspect of corruption there because they're involved. For example, when, let's say, a community, one of your favorite communities that you always hear on the note, on the roads, on the news, where the roads are always in disrepair, to fix this road, right? What I'm hearing from a lot of people, and what many of us see ourselves, is that the contractors or the government itself gives the money to the MP, and the MP is supposed to use that money to fix the road. But what happens is the MP gives the contractor the money, right? The contractor that they like the money, and when they're done, the contractor returns some of that money back to the MP, right? And that's not the corruption that we're talking about. Some of the corruption that we're trying to remove from government. Now, corruption is in every aspect of our society, from the president, from the PM, all the way down to me and you, to the citizens. And the reason for that is because government regulation actually creates corruption. If it's difficult to do business with the government, then you're going to find that people are going to try to go around that and say, pay a guy to say, hey, get this done for me. And that's corruption, right? When you have too much government involvement, too much nonsensical policies, you create corruption. And all of this is simple. All we have to do is to get the government to stop butting into everybody's business and do what it's supposed to do, which is the equal protection of our life, liberty, and property.
Thank you,
Hallelujah.
Devon. Thank you. I like the sound of that, and especially with creating subject matter experts and removing that conflict of interest that MPs have, and lessen the opportunity or the incentive to act in a way that is corrupt. Now, I see Natalie internet. I wanted to ask Dr. Harvey, one of the UIC's staunchest supporters and a member of the planning committee, in terms of your experience doing business in Jamaica, do you believe that the UIC's policy will bring about a significant change in the short, medium, and long term?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's why I'm involved. We have to get rid of all this excess government. It costs us too much money. It's too inept. It's too inefficient. It can't do anything right. Just get rid of it. Why should we pay all these tax dollars for these people who sit there? I've been in these government offices and watching soccer all day long. We're paying for this. I say, hey, give them a gold squeegee, put them out in the quarter at Hope and Trafalgar.
Wonderful, Dr. Harvey. Thank you much. As always, to the point and very fiery. I
Eh,
like that.
Winston, Dr. Harvey makes a very, very excellent point. Do you know how much hundreds of thousands of hours we waste in lines at government offices? You need to get a TCC, a so-called tax compliance certificate, and you have to go all over the place to get an authorization letter from here, a letter from here, a letter from there, and follow these archaic processes in an age where we have technology which allows you to do everything online at warp speed. And instead, when you go down to the tax office here in Santa Cruz, every morning there's a long line of people outside. We have to get there from before 6 in the morning. The office opens at 8:30. But if you want to be first in the line, get there from 6 in the morning so that you can be at least close to the front. If you miss that, you're going to be way at the back, and it's half or more of your work day that's gone before you get through. Now, this kind of thing is not, I mean, if you're going to spend your time, trying to just appease government, you're not working, you're not producing, you're not, getting a product out to market, you're not designing, you're not improving, which is why Jamaica has become mostly a seller nation. We don't get to produce anything. We just sell back whatever everybody else produces because our time is being wasted and our lives are being wasted and our money is being wasted by the government.
Thank you so very much, Joseph. We also have a question that came in that asked about UIC and a seat on the EOJ. Now, has the UIC made any move to represent EOJ? And that's for Joseph.
Sure, maybe Kevin want to answer this. Kevin has been involved in this process for a while. I can answer it, but maybe Kevin, you want to go first and just share some of what you know? Otherwise, I can speak to it.
Um, I didn't hear the question clearly. Can you repeat it,
Sure.
Winston?
The question is, does the UIC have a seat on the EOJ? If not, why not? Why aren't we on the Electoral Office of Jamaica, or rather the Electoral Commission, ECJ? Why don't we have a seat on the ECJ? We have the two traditional colonial parties, both have seats on the ECJ. They're appointed by their respective parties. Why is it the UIC, that's a registered party, not having a seat on the ECJ?
Well, the answer to that is very, very simple. They created the Interim Act and they created the Representation of the Peoples Act. And in those two, they make no structure for any other political party to have a seat on that commission. Plain and simple.
Yes.
And when I made inquiries, I spoke with the political ombudsman, and she recommended that we get an attorney to fight for a seat on the commission. That was what was recommended. So at this point, there is no mechanism, there is no law providing for any party outside of the JLP or PNP to be members of that commission.
So what they want us to do, thank you, Kevin, excellent explanation. What they want us to do, we, on the advice of the political ombudsman, we, the UIC, a political party which is made up of ordinary Jamaicans who are hardworking citizens who have no clout in Jamaica. We don't have millions of dollars to spare. We're to get legal representation and go and fight the government. We must go and take the government to court in order to be added to a commission which they created and told the Jamaican people that the purpose of this commission was to ensure good governance and transparency over the electoral process. That's the purpose of the commission, But we, the UIC, now a duly registered party following their rules of registration, which were designed to keep us out. Having followed their rules, they're now telling us that in order for us to have a seat on the commission, we must take the government to court to pursue the matter. There is no mechanism in legislation for any other political party but the two major ones to have seats on the commission.
So I have two follow-up questions based on this tragic information that we're receiving. That the UIC, being a duly registered party and seeking to represent the people and having received the support of the people necessary to be registered as a party, is still being denied access to the political structure of Jamaica. And we have to ask the question, why?
Yes.
So I encourage every Jamaican to ask your political representative when you see him or her. As a matter of fact, don't wait. Write to them, whether directly to their offices, whether on social media, and ask why the UIC is not being allowed to take its rightful place in the Jamaican electoral system. But the follow-up question, Joseph, has the UIC faced any other such pushback in dealing with agencies of the government that you can recall, where they are not being afforded the, I won't say respect, but afforded the opportunity to avail themselves of these government services that are paid for?
Well, the UIC itself hasn't had to deal with many other government agencies. Most of us deal with those agencies as citizens in our right, business owners, small business owners, and so on. But what the UIC faced from the very beginning when they brought in the new laws concerning the registration of political parties, what we faced was a very big opposition by the two major parties to our becoming a political party. They took 10 months to grant us registration on a number of foolish technicalities. 10 months, they pushed back on us. And in the last election, they took a few weeks to approve a fourth party because it serves their interest to do so at the time, to create the confusion in the minds of Jamaicans and to make sure that the people did not have just a simple, clear third alternative. And so we see that. We also, when we first created the UIC, and for years afterwards, got denied by all the major banks in Jamaica. They would not open an account for us. Now, these are not government agencies, but as you know, our private sector, the big business sector, and the government is closely related because they give millions of dollars to their campaigns every election. And so all of these major banks would not open an account for the UIC. And the reason for not opening the account is that they said the UIC is unable to vouch for the source of the income of those persons who will be donating to the party. In other words, we were supposed to be able to tell them precisely where every dollar came from anybody who would give a dollar to the UIC. And I asked them the question, is that the same requirement of all the other organizations that you have who receive donations, all the other political parties and charities? Do you require that they explain to you where every dollar comes from the people who donate? They said they cannot discuss that with us. That's a private matter between them and the client. But what they're telling us is that they will not open an account for us because we cannot precisely tell them exactly where every dollar would come from. These are the kind of things that are used in Jamaica to block some people and some organizations while opening the doors for others.
And Joseph, just to follow up quickly on that. Wait, I think we might have lost Winston, so he'll be back in a sec. But oh, he's back here now. But just to follow up on that, the last election when they registered the fourth political party, there was something that I noticed. The media actually focused a lot on that political party.
Um,
They made
Thank
it
you, folks.
seem,
Sorry for that.
don't worry, don't worry, Winston, I got you. Yeah. So they made it seem as if that fourth political party was the UIC. So we spent a lot of time trying to put clarity out there to explain that the UIC is not, I think, what's their name, the JPP or PP, I don't remember. Yeah, so we spent a lot of time trying to separate ourselves from that organization because the media kept focusing on them and them alone.
Yes, and it's all these things are strategic, right? I mean, the goal of the powers that be is to ensure that Jamaican people do not hear the UIC and our message because it's a message of liberation, and they do not want to liberate the masses from their control, from the slavery that they have us in. Now, Winston, are you back with us to jump in, or should we go to one of the questions I see here on the right side of the screen?
Yes.
Joseph, can you talk a little bit about how that commission membership is made up, so
Sure,
people have a little bit of clarity as to how it's made up?
no
I
problem.
kind of understand it, but the wording, I don't know if I can remember the wording of
No,
how
no problem.
the nomination and the so and such. Yeah, please.
Sure. Let me try and remember. So basically, the way the commission is, it has 9 persons on the commission, if my memory serves me right. Two of which are appointed by the leaders of the two traditional colonial political parties. So the PNP appoints 2, and the JLP appoints 2. So that's 4. And then the prime minister, in his capacity as prime minister, appoints the others, one of which or 2 of which are appointed on the advice of the governor general. So, in effect, the prime minister is responsible for the majority of the members on the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, and then the other party has at least 2 of the members being from them. So in the end, it is a partisan system that is governing the country and claiming to be a non-partisan or bipartisan, well, I guess it's bipartisan, a bipartisan structure to keep out everybody else.
Thank you, Joseph. I remember a few months ago you were on a program and you spoke about the ECJ constitution, as in how it's made up. But let me ask you this. In terms of the advice of the ombudsman to pursue this legally, has UIC considered that as an option?
Oh, absolutely. We have considered it as an option, but it's not an option we can afford to take up at this time. The UIC needs far more support from you see, the key thing, Winston, the UIC is not funded by the big businesses in Jamaica, right? So that's the big thing. Political parties in Jamaica are largely funded by the major private sector businesses. They give millions and millions of dollars to the 2 major parties so that at the end of the day, whichever one of them is elected, they will carry out the wishes of big business in Jamaica. So big business is well represented in Jamaica. What is not represented in the political system are the people of Jamaica. A small subsection goes out to vote. So, for example, in the last election, 19% of Jamaicans voted for the JLP, and 81% of Jamaicans rejected the JLP, right? So, all you need is a small group of Jamaicans that are going to go out and vote, and you're elected as the government. And the private sector funds the party to get that small percentage of Jamaicans to go out and vote for them. What the UIC is trying to do and has not yet fully succeeded in doing is to galvanize an army of Jamaicans, a large number of Jamaicans, to give a small amount of money so that the UIC has the resources to be able to have a proper staff and a proper group of volunteers with the resources they need to go out and get the message out. The UIC also battles with the fact that the media, the traditional media that Jamaicans have come to know and trust, is largely funded by the same organizations that fund the two major parties. And so they don't have a vested interest in ensuring that the Jamaican people hear from the UIC. So you don't have the kind of journalism in Jamaica where journalists are looking for and trying to ensure that the Jamaican people hear the voice of all the political parties that are here to represent them. So if you turn on your television every day, you will hear from the two major political parties and you will hear nothing from the UIC. Not because we're not available and not because we're not ready to share with the Jamaican people, but simply because big media has no interest in hearing from the UIC and having our voice being heard by the Jamaican people. So we have a major task, and only the Jamaican people like yourselves who have stepped up and are helping the UIC to get its word out through social media primarily, for example, and in our local communities where we have persons who have the time. You know, the truth is the political masters, they know how they have made the people poor. And, you know, a lot of people are just going day to day trying to make ends meet. They don't have time. They don't think they have time. They don't think they can make any time to go and do political activities. They're busy just trying to earn a living and put food on the table. And the powers that be knows this. So the only way we're going to break it is by the sacrifice that you and I are making. The sacrifices that I am making from time from my family and my resources, that Winston makes, that TJ makes, that Kevin makes, that Devon makes, that Natalie makes, that Janet makes, that Paulette makes, that Dr. You know, all of us who dedicate a little bit of our time and some of our small income to push this through so that we can help Jamaicans realize that we can do better. We can have a better system of governance. So to your question, Winston, we wish we could challenge them in the courts, but we just don't have the resources to do it right now, to be frank.
Thank you, Joseph. And with that being said, we ask Jamaicans to go to our social media page, go to our website. You will see the means by which you can assist the UIC in furthering the mandate of the people. And I do mean the mandate of the people. Any small amount help, and we just don't need money. We need volunteers, especially if you have a legal background or legal expertise. UIC would be happy to have you on board. We need your support in every sense. Just drop us a line and we'll tell you how you can help us to further the message of the UIC and bring that much needed, that much anticipated, that much wanted liberation of the Jamaicans' mind and the economy. With that being said, I think Natalie is back and her internet is stable and she's willing and ready to share with us. Natalie, we are here trying to reach everyone and the youths should not be neglected. Tell us, how are the youths talking about the UIC? I think you're still muted, Natalie. If you're not,
No, she's
turn
not.
your
She's
mic
not
up a
muted,
little.
but we can't hear. It's not muted,
Yeah,
but we just
something
can't hear you.
something wrong with her mic.
Yeah, something's wrong with your mic. But we can read your expression though, Natalie. We can see your face loud and clear, and we know that you really want to contribute.
Now, having said that, we'll wait until Natalie have that mic thing figured out and then we'll speak to her. In terms of our social media plan, Devon, since mainstream media has us on a blacklist, so to speak, and they have ignored our press releases, ignored us when they need contributions to the national story, the national narrative, because we don't speak their language. How are we putting the message out there?
We're putting the message out there with our brand new UIC Liberty TV. So UIC Liberty TV features, sorry, features acts like Joseph Patterson, Winston Wright, myself. You have the UIC Destination that's coming soon, and UIC in the Streets that's coming soon. And Natalie is a major contributor to that. Marlon is as well, but Marlon isn't here with us today. But they have been really great in putting this together. So soon I'll be starting my own show for UIC Liberty TV. Winston has his show that's called Town Cry every Friday morning at 8 a.m. And Joseph's show is going to be called The Money Doctor. So he's going to be coming on and he's going to be telling you, listen, I've learned a lot from Joseph about money in one day than I have my entire life. So when Joseph starts this show, Money Doctor, be sure to log in, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channels, like our Instagram and Facebook pages, because there's a lot to learn, especially in regards to not just the wider economy of Jamaica, but the economy of your bank account, the economy of your pockets. Right, Joseph will explain the rat race to you. Winston is coming with the town cry to let you know what is going on right now in Jamaica, what went on yesterday, and what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's what UIC Town Cry is. My show, I'm going to keep it secret for now. I'm going to keep you all waiting for when that launches. But that's what UIC Liberty TV is. It's a way to go around the silencing tactics of mainstream media, as well as our own government, right? Because media, even if they do cover the UIC, they don't cover the UIC in a, what do I say, in a fair light. They cover the UIC only to tarnish the UIC's name in favor of something else, usually in favor of the JLP or the PNP. And I don't want you guys to be fooled. The Jamaica Gleaner or the Jamaica Observer, like I see it all the time on social media. They're saying, I don't remember which one they're saying. One is JLP and one is PNP. I don't remember which one they said is what, right? But don't be fooled. They're both for each, right? They both have the same shareholders. And these shareholders are the same people who are funding the JLP and the PNP. It's the same thing with Fox News and CNN. They're just playing games with you, right? They're playing games with us. So don't pay attention to all of that, right? That's why we're trying to create independent content, independent media, which is UIC Liberty TV.
And along that vein, Devin, our membership video is getting done tonight, and hopefully I'll be able to send it out to the planning committee sometime tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. R. We can't wait to see it. And you're so right, Devon, on point on all of that. Winston, there's a question on the board, which is a tough question. It's about the issue of minimum wage, which no average, ordinary political party would dare talk about the way the UIC talks about it. Do you want to look at that question?
Thank you, Joseph. As in, answer that question or direct
No,
it to
well,
someone?
you can answer it if you want, or you can have a discussion on it. I think our viewers might learn a lot about this it's not contentious. It's really a very simple issue, but it's a very emotional issue, and one which politicians use to trick the people and have been tricking the people for years.
But let me start the ball rolling by saying this, Joseph. If I am assured a basic level of earning without putting any effort into my job, I would gladly jump at that basic income, as it is called. What I find is this: our governments have functioned in a way that gives persons the false perception that they do anything and everything for them and it's absolutely free. It is not free. Right now, it has cost us $2 trillion. A minimum wage creates the narrative for a company that is looking to create production with the labor that exists locally. That okay, these guys have a basic starting point, so right, I'm gonna have to deal with that. But the fact is that, as you have said, our productive capabilities are low, and that minimum wage is one of those things that keeps that productive scale low. Why? Because persons know from the beginning they are guaranteed a certain level of income, so they do not upskill and they do not contribute because there is no incentive to do so. Now, person might say, but if you are aware of the Jamaican history and the history of the evolution of our economy, why would you say that? It is that history that they're using against us to create that false narrative and a false sense of safety in that minimum wage structure. Jamaicans need to step out in a bold way, in a creative way, and say, from a national policy point of view, demand that our government do things, again, from a policy point of view only, to encourage workers and create the incentive for workers to upskill and create a higher level of productivity. When you look at the graduates coming out of college and coming out, even high school, the standard of education is indeed low. And right now, there are cries in this education sector to dumb down the exit exams to make them easier because of what is going on, the lack of contact hours with students over the past months. That does not make sense. What you're creating is a skill gap by doing that. What we should focus on is finding creative Jamaican ways out of the box of engaging students to bring their skill up to meet these trying circumstances and elevate it beyond what is necessary, and continue to do that through the coming decades to ensure that our young people, instead of relying on social safety nets, have the ability to put themselves out there, earn, and be seen as producers and break the stereotype of, oh, those quote unquote lazy persons who depend on the government. With that, I hand over to you, Joseph.
Sure. Anybody else have any thoughts on this minimum
Yeah.
wage issue?
Yes.
Go
Yes,
ahead, Devon.
I have some thoughts. You know, much of the things that I know today are things that I actually learned in I learned in 2020, and I've learned that we've been lied to a lot by the government through the education system. So they taught us what they taught us is that when you go to get a job, you work for somebody, you are an employee. But as of last year, like I was thinking, and I'm like, uh, an employee is technically, if you think about it from a logical perspective, is technically a business owner because you are offering a service to an employer. So now I want you to look at this. Let's say that you have a building that needs to be painted and you want to hire a painter. You have 10, maybe 15 painters, right? And they come up to you and say, okay, I'm going to charge X to paint this building. You, as the owner of the building, are not going to look at the painter and say, no, you cannot charge X. You're going to charge half of X. What you're going to do is you're going to select, of the painters, you're going to select the one with the best price to fit your budget. So why isn't it the same for a employer and an employee? Why is it that the employer sets the salary for the employee? Why does the employee not decide that, hey, my services and my skill is worth $20 per hour, and I will not accept less than this. If you want less than this, look elsewhere. So that's what I'm saying, that we've been lied to and tricked into allowing employers and government to set our salaries for us, when we should be the ones putting the value on our services. We should be the ones saying, Mr. Employer, these are my services and this is how much I want for my services. And that's why I threw a whole entire wrench in this minimum wage thing, because I won't say everybody, most people hate the rich and want to eat the rich. But at the same time, they love the rich. Now, why do I say they hate the rich and want to eat the rich and love the rich? I say this because it's the rich that are promoting the minimum wage. You think like these politicians don't come up with these things by themselves, right? Amazon or Walmart, there are these big box businesses that everybody loves to hate, that they're saying that have slave laborers or whatever it is. If you Google right now, Amazon, Walmart, minimum wage, you're gonna find that these companies are in big support of it. Why are they in support of it? They're in support of it because when you increase the minimum wage, you cancel out businesses like mine, small businesses like mine. I can't compete with Amazon right now as it is. So when you put a minimum wage, let's say you increase it to $20, I'm gonna have to fire all my employees and shut my business down. But Amazon, oh man, they'll be the happiest company in the world because they get a larger share of the market. So, and at the same time, they're using the monies they already have on hand, their investments, to invest in automation. So they can keep their costs low, and they can even increase the cost of their products if they want to, because there's less competition in the market. So that's why I say that they hate the rich, they want to eat the rich, but at the same time, they love the rich because they are promoting the tactics of the rich.
But you see,
And
Devon, yes, Paul, go ahead.
okay, I was going to say that I think the topic of the minimum wage is a very emotive subject for Jamaicans because of the history of Jamaica, where we came out of this slavery system where people worked and worked long hours and got no pay at all. So people begin to think, what is living wage? What is it that is at minimum persons should get in order to be able to provide basic stuff? So for most of us in Jamaica, we would want to support a minimum wage out of that narrative. However, what we find is that this minimum wage is kind of like a two-edged sword, because while it is that you do want to have a minimum, you want to have living wages, you have to consider who determine what is a living wage, because my living wage and somebody else's living wage might be two different things. But they say, okay, let's have a minimum to which people can exist. But when we look at the minimum wage, it has the impact of, like Devon said earlier, to eliminate entrepreneurs, small businesses not being able to provide, not being able to afford labor, because labor is one of the biggest costs that any business normally has. So it is a very emotive subject for most of us in Jamaica, minimum wage, but we really have to look at it carefully. And as Devon also pointed out, I think one of the things we have to do is to increase the capacity to which we can produce in Jamaica so that we can increase our ability to bargain for our own wages. Because the matter of demand and supply is very important in when you're setting prices. And so if you have a large market of persons who are unskilled, then that's gonna drive down the price that they can bargain for their services, right? So the matter of demand and supply is very important into this idea of how you set minimum wage, how you set wages in particular. But
So
as I said, because it's such an emotive thing for us, coming from a history of slavery, we want to make sure, we want to do good for the people. So we want to make sure that there's at least a living wage or a minimum wage that people get. But when we look at it, sometimes it really works against us in the long run.
so here's the bottom line. The minimum wage did not come about because they wanted to help the poor. The minimum wage was created, first of all, in countries where they had racism, where they set the wage at a certain minimum so that it was disadvantageous for white owners to employ low-skilled black labor. Because white owners used to employ black labor because the black labor would have been less trained, but they can still get them to do the work. So they'll pay them. Let's say that it was 10, for example, let's say it was $1 an hour. You could go and hire a black person in South Africa, which is where the minimum wage really took off in the first instance. $1 an hour, you can pay a black person 50 cents an hour. Now, why would a black person take 50 cents an hour? What? Because they would otherwise be getting 0 an hour. So the black person was better off taking a 50 cents an hour job than 0 an hour. And so that caused black people to start getting experience in the labor markets, in the South African labor markets, and becoming more technically skilled and competent and raising their proficiency. Now, when the white unions organized and brought in minimum wage, they said it's so high that it did not make sense for a white company that's running very well to hire black labor. If they hired them, they had to do it under the table, which would then be illegal. And so you criminalize these white owners and send them to jail to stop them from hiring lower skilled black labor. So remember, minimum wage started first as a racist tool. Now, in the Jamaican context, during the 1930s, when we had the labor riots, where Bustamante came to notoriety by saying, "Shoot me and leave the people," during that phase, the people were bargaining for their rate of pay. And they did that quite well with their unions, and they organized. And the rate of pay that they bargained for with their respective employers was based on the type of work which is being done and the type of industry that they're in. And nothing is wrong with collective bargaining. The masters figured out it was much wiser to co-opt government into setting a minimum wage standard, which they could then apply across the board, regardless of skill levels. What that does, it ensures that those who are lowest skilled, who would only have the rate of pay to negotiate with, were eliminated from the workforce because they could not now negotiate because nobody could legally hire them below that. This then created a false impression of what the wage rate should be among the wider society. The big companies then use that false narrative to then cream off the best of the crop off the top of the citizens that they can get and pay them whatever price, even above minimum wage, but still at a lower wage than they otherwise would have now bargained for if they didn't have this false narrative in the picture. So in the long and short of it, what we have done in Jamaica is put a structure in place which lock out those 70% of students who graduate from school every year with low skills, the vast majority of them never ever getting a real job, never learning time management, how to show up to work properly and on time, how to follow instructions, and learning core business operating skills, which would then build their skills level. Those many, many hundreds of thousands of young people remain unemployed now for a very long period of time. So from they leave school at 16, 17, 18 to 25 and 30 to 40, never having a proper job their entire life. And so they become permanently unemployable in the regular workforce, but become employable to politicians to do their gun runnings and to do their political shootings and their garrison building and their gang building. So they're easily recruited into the gangs, into the drug smuggling, and into the gun smuggling, and thus became Jamaica's crime problem. Not just the minimum wage, but the minimum wage served as a key component of eliminating the lowest level. And by lowest, this is serious because remember, 70% of our students leave high school without the requisite skills and competencies that a normal citizen should have. And this 70% becomes vulnerable. A few of them will get minimum wage jobs. The vast majority are left out. Now, who would have hired them? They would have been hired now by many small and micro businesses legally and legitimately. But because the government makes the criminal offense to hire them and pay them less. They can't work in an official capacity and build official skills and become officially plugged into the normal commercial economy, but become a part of an illegitimate economy, and their mental thought processes now become dwarfed, and they're not now a part of a mobilization effort where you're growing in skills and competencies and being an upstanding citizen. So over time, you have a large number of Jamaicans who have never had proper work experience and been properly cultured to have time management, operating skills, business skills, and so on. And that is undermining Jamaica. The minimum wage is the biggest creator of unemployment in Jamaica and the greatest destroyer of small businesses and a massive protection of big business.
And then, yeah, yeah. So, and then you find that you have a oversupply of jobs and the undersupply of businesses. Right now, the education system is spitting out employees, but it's not spitting out employers. There is
Yes.
literally no innovation taking place. And because the government, in a sense, in essence, is in control of the economy, and they're the ones seemingly making the decisions about the type of skills needed in Jamaica, they seem to be focused on creating more employees than creating employers.
So the government is the one that sets the curriculum.
Yeah.
They decide what we learn in school. So the government is responsible for the fact that Jamaica is behind in the 21st century technologically. Many of our students did not learn coding in school. You have the current prime minister now making a big ribbon cutting exercise about, bringing coding to Jamaica. Mr. Prime Minister, you're 20 years late, right? 20 years late. So our curriculum is 20 years behind. So our students have graduated after many years in school, not having the skills for today. And today, the prime minister is going to talk about the skills that should have been taught 20 years ago. This
And
is,
Joseph,
yeah,
I can attest to that because I did my degree in industrial engineering at Caribbean Maritime Institute in Kingston,
yes,
and I did an advanced diploma in energy system engineering technology. In my first year at Centennial, I learned how to code and I made a robot,
yes,
and
yeah,
that's a diploma,
yeah.
right, versus a degree. So I can attest to that.
Yeah, when I moved from Jamaica to Canada in 1994, having studied engineering and thinking that I was somebody because I had a job at the sugar company before and I was assistant manager and whatever, and I landed in Canada, and I said, "Yep, I want a job in engineering," and a few of them were kind enough to call me and say, "Okay, come in, take a look." And when they showed me what they were doing, for example, in Jamaica, I learned to use a lathe and I thought this was a lathe. And when I went to Canada, I found out that the lathe that they have were run on PLCs, programmable logic circuits, and that I had no clue how to operate a PLC while telling somebody that I'm an engineer. They laughed at me and tell me to go back to Ryerson for 2 more years and come again. So our country, the education system is managed by our politicians. So the Jamaica you see today is the Jamaica that the two major parties have created. Every single solitary problem you see in Jamaica, every single problem you see us having, from crime to corruption, to disorderliness, to the dirty streets, the social breakdown of the family, every single one of those problems are created directly or indirectly by the government of Jamaica, by the way that they have designed and operated the system that we call Jamaica. Every
Thank
single
you.
one of those problems.
Thank you, Joseph. Very, very direct and very pointed, everyone. I love the debate and we should continue. And I'd like the angle where we look at the education system because my question was going to be about the education system. I see a hand up, but firstly, just to share with you what Natalie has written since she's unable to speak directly. Of the persons who I have personally spoken to, the ideas of the UIC seem to be an unattainable dream, specifically within this current system. But I point out that Well, that's the point. This system isn't created for us to overthrow it. It's created for us to think we should be entirely dependent on it. Hold on, I just lost my screen here. Dependent on it. We have to outsmart the system by choosing independents voted by us, people who we can trust to stick to the UIC plan, which is basically to free us from the current system and give us our liberty while providing the structure which will allow us all to succeed. Well said, Natalie. Now, as we go out and share the UIC vision with all the youth out there, it is good to point out to them that UIC recognize the deficit that has been created for them by the system, by those who would use it for selfish means and self-serving means. And UIC provides an alternative by being a collection of independent thinkers dedicated to ridding Jamaica of the corruption that it faces that has been so normalized, the lack of education that leaves our youth behind the rest of the world and suffering economically. And in the long term, destroying the economy and bringing us to the depths of poverty where we're borrowing beyond our means so others can pocket it for their personal benefit.
Mhm.
And these guys, when they pocket our money, their kids go to school overseas. We should probably ask the
Absolutely.
prime minister where his kids go to school. I can tell you it's overseas.
Winston, look at this. If you go to any one of these politicians' home, the prime minister's home, the minister of finance, they know what a community should look like. They build their homes with class. They have very nice walls, beautifully manicured lawns, beautiful tile entrances, chandeliers, well sculptured windows with proper moldings and the best kind of glass, proper paint and color combination, the best of furniture. They know what an environment should look like, but they do not make the Jamaican environment look like that. They don't make the people in Tivoli Gardens look like that. They don't make the people in Waterhouse look like that. They don't make the community in Seaview Gardens look like that. They don't make Elam in St. Elizabeth look like that, or Bogue, or Braze River, but they make their houses look like that. What the UIC is saying, let's make all Jamaica look like the Prime Minister's residence. The entire Jamaica must look good for the Jamaican people to enjoy. And let's make our school system not a government school system, but one where our students are learning modern technology, modern education, modern skills that will allow them to not only compete, but exceed what's happening in the world. I think somebody wrote on Facebook, Lycia says, yes, as a high school teacher, I tell my students that schooling is a scam. And she's right. It is a scam, she says, because it is controlled by the state and they should ensure that they educate themselves by any means necessary. Education is not confined to the system of schooling in place. Her point is we have to look outside, but hold on. But the government thief your money. If you look at your paycheck, you will see a line on there where every paycheck they take 2.5% of your income for education, and then they stick up the company that you work for and take 3% from them for education, and then they stick up the company again and take another 3% for Heart Academy. Now hold on a second. Why is it, Winston, we send children to basic school, to primary school, to secondary school, with the government taking our money to do that, and then they still have to again send them back to Heart again? Why is it a student can't leave high school with the skills to go straight to either a proper tertiary institution or a proper college? Why is it they have to keep taking our money from us to fund a system that is failing, that fails 70% of our students every single solitary year? The UIC will change that. We're going to turn over the education system to the people who know how to run schools. The public, you have smart, brilliant educators who can set up a curriculum that will deliver high quality content to students. It doesn't have to be all the same. We can have schools that are equipped to advance science and technology, some which will advance arts, music, entertainment, others which will advance sports, some that will advance aeronautical engineering, whatever it is. But we need to have a divested school system where the highest quality and smartest people can train our children. Look at Singapore. I think somebody said that it seemed far-fetched to do what the UIC wants to do. But look at Singapore. It took them 25 years from 1965 to become a first world country. We have taken 75 years from self-governance to now, and we're still a third world. We have to
Mm.
stop it.
A great disparity, Joseph. Licia also said that I don't think it's so much that we aren't turning out innovators. I think they are bombarded by bureaucratic red tape or killed off when they do not want to sell their ideas. Harlem, Maine is an example.
Very good
Also,
point. Very good point, Winston. Um, it's not that you say Jamaicans are innovative, right? Take any Jamaican. What I've noticed, you can take almost anybody from Jamaica with the nonsense of education and you put them in another country where they have an opportunity and they will make something of themselves, right? But I wouldn't say the school system is turning out innovators. The school system is retarding innovators. A system that is turning out innovators actually produces higher quality outputs. Right now, if you're an employer in Jamaica and you're trying to employ quality workers, you'll have a hard time finding them. And I'm not lying to you because I've been involved in the process of hiring people. Very hard time. Some people can't measure properly. Some can't read properly. Some can't analyze properly. They'll work, if they get an opportunity where they can feel like they're making good money, they'll work. What is happening is some of them feel stunted because even if they work hard, the amount of money that they get is not enough for them to keep up with the standard of living, the cost of living rather, here in Jamaica. And so if they go abroad, they can do very, very well. But if they stay here, they feel suffocated and if they can't get anywhere. And so we, the Jamaican people, have to turn the corner on this by freeing up the people and freeing our education system from government control.
and so two things. On the previous matter of minimum wage, since we're talking about employment, uh, a listener on Facebook said that our problem goes back to the era of our first prime minister, and you made that point, Joseph. Also, when you look at our curriculum and realize that the curriculum was restructured in the late 80s and eliminated a lot of the teaching about one, slavery, two, the Jamaican political and judicial system, it's clear that our politicians want to hide knowledge from the people to keep us in a desperate economic situation. I,
Absolutely.
I see Kevin with his hand up. Go ahead, Kevin. It's been up for a while.
Yes, I wanted to add that most employers know that there is a issue of mass landlessness in the country that comes from the era of slavery, and the country still operates on the doctrine and concepts of the plantation. So when that employer is looking for someone and they want to that employee said, "Oh, I'm not going to work for minimum wage." The employer said, "No problem," because they know that there's 100 more people out there that will work for that kind of money. Because most people in Jamaica don't own land. So when you don't own land, you're limited. You're very limited in your capabilities and your economic avenues. And
That
when
is
it comes to, go ahead, yes. When it comes to education, where the government is not serious about education. I really thought that it was. I thought that Jamaica's problem was corruption in politicians. What looking at it more and more and more, I see that it is not really the corruption of politicians. Our problem is the Ministry of Education and how we're educated. We're not at all.
Kevin, no, I disagree. It's not the Ministry of Ed. You say the Ministry of Education is a product of the government. The Ministry of Education is a product of the government. It's an outgrowth of the government. So what the Ministry of Education does is as a result of the governance system that we have. So our system of governance is designed to make masters over us. The Prime Minister and his ministers are our masters. And no master wants to educate his slaves to overthrow him. No master wants his slave to understand what is really going on. They want the slave to be fearful of him. They want the slave to be ignorant, and they want the slaves to be poor so that they can't organize and fund any great activity. So the education system of Jamaica serves the corrupt purpose of the
Yes,
governance model of Jamaica.
yes, they're really using that as a tool,
A tool, yeah.
uh, a tool of control.
Yes.
Because you see, if they were serious, they would have a very strong civics curriculum.
Yeah. But they are
Which
serious. They're serious about keeping us ignorant.
yes, yes, that is true. Um, a serious civics curriculum would have something like introduction to government, and this is in no political particular order of importance. But you would have like introduction to government. You'd have foundation of the plantocracy and the British colonization, which kind of would explain our history. Um, you'd have you talk about the constitution and forms of government. You talk about foreign policy. You talk about political parties and political ideology. It would talk about campaigns and elections. It would talk about individual and collective responsibility. It would talk about liberties, rights, and freedoms. And you will also talk about law, policy, and the court system. I mean, if young people knew those things coming out of school, they would have a good knowledge of how to measure politicians.
In other
And
words, Devon, in other words, Kevin, if we a good system ensures that the students know what good governance is.
yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah, because if you know what good governance is, then you know what to look for. And when you see a deviation from it, you can now stand up and fight. Right now, the average 25-year-old or 35-year-old or 45-year-old or 55-year-old in Jamaica or 65 or 75 has no idea what good governance is. If you ask them, they will know that the system now work right, that things now go right, but they cannot explain to you what good governance is and what is really wrong. And that is the problem. And so our school system does not teach children, does not teach our citizens how a government is supposed to operate, what are the boundaries of governance, what is the responsibility of every single citizen and the responsibility of the government to each citizen. They don't know that, and so they look for the wrong things. So in my community here, for example, I live in St. Elizabeth, and I am bordered by a number of communities, Braes River, Elam, Bogue, which is what I'm in, Balaclava, and so on. And the average citizen in these communities, what they think of politician is that when they see a politician, he's to give them something, maybe a goat, maybe a bag of pig food, maybe a zinc, maybe some blocks or tiles. That's what they see a member of parliament as. They don't understand that the MP is to represent their interest. And what is their interest? Their interest is to make sure that their freedoms are protected, to make sure that they feel safe and can go about their business lawfully, that they're not being overtaxed, that their government is not taxing them and failing to provide them the services that they should receive collectively to be able to function individually and as families effectively. They don't think like that. They think a politician's job is to go to funerals, buy rum for the night, give them a money to send their children to school, buy a tablet for their daughter, come to their parents' funeral. You know, they have these very basic, minimal understanding and appreciation because they have been led to that by their politicians, by these two political parties that have created mass ignorance and mass dependence and mass poverty, where young girls have to sell their bodies to get a little money in order to buy basic things for themselves. And many have 4, 5, 6 children from different fathers and cannot take care of them because even in high school, they didn't get the kind of fundamental skills to think, reason, and produce. And this is the kind of environment that these two parties have cultured and matured and then dominate and manage and lead them to the polls to vote for them year after year after year after year, and leave the people living in squalor and indignity, and then come on television in their jacket and tie and tell us foolishness every day, and the news media cover it as if they're talking about reputable, decent human beings. These people are criminals, and they've treated Jamaicans like dogs. And it's time for us to get serious and kick them out and take over our country and fix it up. We'll play around with them and I talk nice talk, nice talk. These people are criminals. They need to go.
You know, Sir Joseph,
I think,
you know, I was talking to a brethren yesterday on Facebook. He made a post that the government needs to mandate security cameras on every on our business places in Jamaica. So he's a supporter of the JLP. So I said to him, like why do you want more government intervention? The government itself admitted recently that it is the cause of poverty. So why would you want them to interfere more into government policies, right? So then I said to him, hey, listen, I know that you don't like the UIC, you don't support the UIC, but that's not the point. What you need to do is have a look at the UIC policy. Push the UIC policy. You don't need to push the UIC. Just push the UIC policy. All of us here would love nothing better than the UIC policy to be implemented, and we can go about our business and live our lives and be happy. We would love nothing more, right? I kind of lost my my chin.
No, well, I share your thought, Devon.
Yeah.
I mean, if the only reason I am a part of the UIC and pushing this is because I have no expectations or hope in hell that these two parties would ever do what the UIC is proposing. Because you say the UIC is a dumb party, you know. We're a very dumb party because we're not trying to get power to take more money from the Jamaican people. We're trying to get power, to give that power back to the Jamaican people, give them back their money, give them their freedom, and give them a secure environment and a free environment in which to go about their daily lives. That's all I want. If we were to ever have that, Devon, overnight, 500,000 new jobs is created in Jamaica. Legitimate jobs, above the board jobs, jobs where people can feel free and dignified to go to work because the government is no longer preventing us from creating those jobs and lifting up ourselves. We don't need them to lift us up because all they have been doing is suppressing us.
So my
can I say, sorry, sometimes when we talk about government in Jamaica, I kind of feel like they're aliens. It's
But
like they're not really part of the society. It's like there are people who beam down from somewhere and is now doing some kind of crazy stuff to manipulate our lives, but they're not really here as part of people who grew up out of the struggle. They are not they were never part of the society. So it's kind of like they work against the people. I mean, who in their right minds, being a part of a community, would not want to see Jamaica out of the history that they came out of, to be a free country, to be a country that is safe and orderly? Who? So they must be aliens.
Yeah.
So
what they're doing, Paulette, what happened is they have figured out a small group of Jamaicans and now even a family connection, a whole, what do you call them now? A whole, generation of them. They've figured out that if they control Jamaica's politics, they can become wealthy from it. That's the bottom line. If they control, it's like a cartel. It's like a gang. In fact, it's a gang.
A family dynasty.
A dynasty,
Yeah.
correct. And
Yes.
it's a gang, think about it.
Absolutely.
We're talking about two gangs, two gangs
Exactly.
that have organized, because listen, Jamaica didn't just become a major gun country just so. Is because those in power have allowed guns to cross our borders into Jamaica because it serves a purpose. It's because they have seen where it makes sense to garrisonize our people and divide our people and distract our people so that they can extract the wealth of the people. And so these two gangs, which they are gangs, they are organized gangs, and they're an enemy of the nation. And they have organized themselves so well and so effectively that they have taken control of our government. And they have a tight grip on it by being able to control the media,
Exactly.
control the flow of money, control whose business can grow and whose won't. Because if they want, they can send in any kind of things to manipulate, to suppress your business. For example, in the 1990s, during the FinSac debacle, the very political elite masterminded the destruction of several businesses for personal reasons. You understand? And so these are serious things. And if the Jamaican people were to ever wake up and realize that what we're talking about here is ridding ourselves of two criminal gangs so that we can free our nation and be able to operate, then Jamaica will stand up and fight. But we haven't realized it yet. We have not gotten to the place yet where we truly realize that we're under attack, that we are being suppressed, that we're being oppressed, and that we're being robbed by two criminal gangs.
So speaking of criminal gangs, I got my chain of thought back. So the JLP, the PNP, the government of Jamaica, they have two options. Either they adopt the UIC policies, which we know they won't, or we investigate every single politician, corrupt politician, whether they're dead or alive, and we put them in the courts, and then they are convicted for their crimes. If a politician who is dead has his name plastered on public buildings, his name plastered on public roads, and he's convicted of a crime, even though he's dead, his name should be stripped and removed from every single aspect of the Jamaican country.
And the assets that were derived from crime are
Yes.
seized by the people of Jamaica
Just
and
as
returned to them.
yes,
Yeah.
just as they do with drug dealers, it should not
Absolutely.
be different for politicians who engage in corruption.
You know, I personally, Devon, would love to give every Jamaican a Truth and Reconciliation Commission so that all who have been involved in all of these activities would just come and confess. And we actually give them amnesty so we can turn the corner and clean up our country and move forward. But I can assure you, if these two parties do not go down the path that I've just described of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission and lay bare the truth for us to properly document it in our history books, I, Joseph L. Patterson, should I be elected, will ensure that every single one of them are charged and tried and pay the fullest extent of their misdeeds caused to the Jamaican people.
And this is where we cue the pot cover, if anybody has any.
And unfortunately, I'm not near the kitchen, but I can hear my neighbors. So I can tell you there are cheers going up hearing that. I have two comments from Maroon, well, three comments from Maroon X. Let me just go through them quickly. First one, we cannot trust them to change the constitution. Imagine they enshrine corruption. Then Maroon X also said the version of Jamaica that elects UIC to change our destructive course will be an informed, creative, and forward thinking. This is how we will save Jamaica. Well said, Maroon X. He also said there was a victim of FinSac who interviewed with Kabu recently. Should get in touch. We'll take that. Definitely would love to get some information on that and share it with the public as to where to go from there. But let me ask you, Joseph, on the on the topic of corruption and waste and taxation without representation. Yes, without representation. Let's ask, in terms of property tax, how will UIC deal with property tax, landlessness that Kevin described, etc.?
Oh, boy, lovely question. First of all, property tax must be abolished. When you buy any property, you pay tax initially on the transaction, and that's the last tax you pay on that until you sell the property, and the buyer pays the tax again for that. But property tax must be abolished because it is wrong, it is immoral. Nobody should pay a permanent tax on any item at all that they have purchased and paid for outright. So we're going to abolish that. Landlessness, every single Jamaican family, especially those who have been denied access to land, must be granted access to a property. Now, I don't believe in the wholesale distribution of land like that. I believe in the productive use of land. What every Jamaican needs is a resident, somewhere to call home that you live in and that is permanent. Of course, you can sell it and buy something else, it's up to you. But the UIC is going to ensure that every single Jamaican has a place that they can call home, that is clean, that is decent. I believe in the model followed by Singapore. As you know, in Singapore, they have approximately 98% home ownership. You hardly have any rental homes in Singapore because the government has been so very instrumental in getting everybody a very nice flat, as they call it. A flat is in a high-rise building. Now, if you are very well off and you want to buy any kind of home, that's up to you. That is fine. But we want to make sure the poorest of citizens has a decent home with enough bedrooms, bathroom, kitchen, dining room, a well built and well designed home that is energy efficient, that is environmentally friendly, that helps with water collection, biogas collection, so we can have energy freedom, water freedom, energy security, and so on. But our lands now, which also still belongs to Jamaican people, must be under quality production to make sure we have food security. So we don't want to just spread out a whole lot of homes across our horrible lands. We want to make sure those land to us is like oil to Saudi Arabia. Okay? So our land must be preserved either for natural forestry or for food production and energy production from biomass and geothermal energy, while we're making sure that from that wealth, every citizen has a resident, a decent home that every child is raised in and can have a decent living standard. So we don't want to say just land, we want to say resident, proper residence. And if a citizen wants to farm, they're always able to go and do that. But the government will make sure that we preserve our most precious commodity, land, that we preserve our watershed, a very another precious commodity, that we harvest our biomass, our solar energy, and our geothermal energy in such a way that the Jamaican people have low-cost energy, which will increase our innovation and manufacturing, and therefore our economic security.
Wonderful, Joseph. So from what you're saying, it sounds like the UIC will have a comprehensive zoning and what we'll call rural and town planning structure. Is that correct?
That is correct. And by the way, we won't call anything rural anymore. The entire Jamaica is Jamaica, but you're going to have areas that are green spaces, that are food production, and areas for residents. We want to make sure residential areas are so designed to maximize the quality of life, and for our green spaces to so be managed as to maximize our food, water, and energy security.
Can I jump in?
Yes, you may.
I just want to say, because every time I listen to the vision of Jamaica from the UIC's perspective, I know many Jamaicans find it almost like a pipe dream, because we have come so accustomed to the dirty street, to the chaka-chaka environment, and to the lack of prosperity and productivity, that we think that these things are beyond us. Really, most of us just waiting for Jesus to come and to take us out of our crosses. So most of us is in that mind where we're just praying for the Lord to deliver us. You know, we don't have a mind to plan and to plan 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years down the line. We think that these things are beyond our capacity of a people. And I really want to say to Jamaica, and every time I get a chance to say this, if other nations of the world can do it, really and truly, there
Why
is
not us?
no reason for us to think that we cannot do it also. Other
Amen.
places are doing it. Other people are not looking for Jesus to come because they're
Exactly.
enjoying the fruits of their labor. They're actually enjoying life, right? When
Yes,
Jesus come, make him come. So we
exactly.
don't need to be sitting down waiting for Jesus to come. We need to occupy till him come. So let us
Absolutely.
plan for Jamaica.
Amen.
Let us have a mind that Jamaica can do better for its people. Because we are people who produce extraordinary things and we do extraordinary things. So why can't we as Jamaicans have an expectation that
Exactly.
Jamaica as a country can have a clean, safe, and orderly Jamaica? We are killing ourselves over COVID when we're killing ourselves more with guns. I mean, seriously, Jamaica, we need to
Yeah.
wake up. This thing is foolishness. We have to wake up as a people and to recognize that it is in our hands. But one of the things we take for granted in Jamaica is our liberty. We give up our liberty so easily. We don't even think we are deserving of liberty. Other
Yeah.
people know that liberty is a prized possession. In Jamaica, we don't think it's a prized possession to be free. We
No.
want government to take over our life of doing everything, to tell us to do everything. We want government to regulate everything concerning our lives. Come on, Jamaica, we can do better than this. We have to have a mindset that we as Jamaica can do better and we can produce an extraordinary place. Let us occupy till the Lord come. Please stop praying for Jesus to come. Occupy till him come.
But you see, this mindset and narrative, Mrs. Mackenzie Williams, was created by the government and the government structure. I should say the government, plural, and the
Yes.
government structure that exists, where through the plantocracy, when the plantocracy went away, it just changed complexion. You understand? The plantation complex remain in the form of the banking sector, the
Mhm.
agricultural sector, the
The
government,
education sector.
the education sector, and they have created a nation of dependents and beggars. And I know not all Jamaicans are, but that is the perception that is being created when our politicians are going on GoFundMe to beg monies to carry out functions that citizens have paid taxes for.
Mhm.
33 and
They,
a
they have
third
they have
percent
they
of
they
every
have
Jamaican
created
earnings.
they have created a situation, Winston, where over the years we're always cheering when another country is donating something to Jamaica. We live for donations. We live for loans. We live for somebody rescuing us all the time. It's time for us to
Well,
rescue
I say
ourselves.
this, I say this to all Jamaicans. I have worked since the age of 18. I have been poor, but I have never begged. And I am not a beggar. And my nation is not a nation of beggars. But we should stand up and drive these immoral and morally bankrupt politicians from office and take charge of our lives for the sake of the next generation, for the sake of our children and their children, or else they'll be stigmatized even further. When we look at
Absolutely.
the world at large and see how the world economy is being managed, the world economy, and Jamaica's part in it, where our leaders are comfortable pandering and prostituting to those world powers instead of seeking to make the people emboldened as Garvey intended and to have
Yeah.
a stand up as a proud nation, it can only be called a shame. Dr. Harvey, you were saying something.
Yeah, God wants us to do it. He gave us the ability to resolve our own problems. What do you think he's
Absolutely.
believers up there throwing everything on his shoulder? Do you think maybe he takes his own name in vain from time to time?
Absolutely. I mean, I always ask people, why did God bother to give us a brain if we shouldn't use it?
Exactly.
You know, we have it to use, and it's time for us to stand up and be counted. Our athletes have done a magnificent job in showing us that we can do great things. You know, we have a Usain Bolt, somebody who right here in Jamaica who has been able to outrun everybody else in the world. Let us do that in economics. Let us do that in politics. We can show the world what a good political system should look like. One that is focused on protecting life, liberty, and property, creating a safe, clean, and orderly country so that everybody can live, work, and earn and retire with dignity.
Before
Unfortunately, guys, I'm gonna have to give everyone the wrap up signal.
Yes.
Winston,
Um,
Yes, Devon.
yeah, before I hand it over to you, I just want to thank some folks in the Facebook group page. That's my name. I just want to thank Maroon X, Wayne Easy Walker, Fari Rasta, We have Isaac Taylor, Joe P. We have Licia here. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Okay, go ahead, Winston.
Thank you, guys.
Uh, so it was great having everyone with us, and it is absolutely exceptional listening to the UIC share. We're by no means done. We're out of time, but we're not done. And I thank everyone for joining us. Yes, Dr.
And just
Harvey, go
real
ahead.
quick, our COVID-19 questions to the Prime Minister, everything's done. Can I get a copy of it on letterhead to start publicizing it, like on social media, and sending it out in an email form to my patients?
We shall make sure that is done this week, Dr. Harvey. I thought it was already approved, but we'll wrap it up this week.
It's
For
already
sure.
approved. I just haven't seen, when you gave it to TJ to put on letterhead, I didn't hear anything after that.
Okay, TJ will get on it and get to you. He's on this call, so he's hearing. So hopefully by tomorrow we'll have something.
Great. Super.
Thank you. Thanks everyone, much appreciated.
All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. As you hear, the UIC on several fronts seek to intervene on your behalf. We are constantly petitioning the government on various issues that affect your life in a big way. You may not hear about it, but we do it. If you want to find out more, join our Facebook page, join the conversation, like, share, subscribe. We're on YouTube. Check out our shows, and anyone who wants to be a part of the Town Cry, whomever you are, if you're a member of the public, hit us up on our website. We'll work with you to get you on. And of course, all our members here, you know you have an invite. Just drop me a WhatsApp message and we'll get on it and cry about what's wrong and show them the UIC solution. Everyone, thank you for spending your Sunday night with us. It was an absolute pleasure. We will do this again next month. Great having you
Thank
with
you.
us.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Bye.
night, Jamaica.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.